Who are the SFC, or the Sindrian Fuel Company? Where do they come from? What do they eat? Do they have cool ships? How about their weapons? Where does all this gorgeous art come from? Who is the Supreme Chief Overlord President Executive Gas Station Manager, Philip Andrada, really? You may have seen memes about this faction, or maybe this is your first time. Together, we'll be taking a closer look at this Starsector faction mod, in what has become one of the highest quality joke mods ever made. Consider subscribing to the channel and buying Sindrian Fuel today. Now strap yourself in, because here we go. The Philip Andrada Gas Station Manager mod is being produced by WM Greywind, whose amazing personality is reflected in the mod, and was posted to the Fractal Softworks forum on March 5th, 2022. Now for clarification before we go any deeper, the mod is titled as Philip Andrada Gas Station Manager, or PAGSM, but the faction in question being added to the game is the Sindrian Fuel Company, or SFC. Now why is that? This mod originally started as a meme. This picture in fact is what started it all. Because the question needed to be asked, what if Philip Andrada only ever wanted to be the best damn gas station manager the sector had ever seen? What if becoming a dictator was merely a stepping stone for Andrada to achieve his life goal? What if there is more to the Asconia system than one might expect? You have questions, and this mod has the answers. As for the talented individuals who have helped make this project happen, let's just say there are a lot of them. The PAGSM experience is quite young, only recently being put into serious development, and yet in a short amount of time it has become a very high quality mod. This is due to the MILF effect, or modders intrinsically liking fun. Everyone loves Philip Andrada, and so everyone wants to help make his dreams reality. There are even Sindrian Fuel advertisements.
Get you down, feeling the daily grind wearing you out? Need to take a breather.
Are you buying Sindrian Fuel yet? Thank you everyone for helping make this beautiful mod. Even those not listed on the mod page. You are all highly valuable customers of the Sindrian Fuel Company. I'll link as many of these profiles as I can find in the description. Sindrian Fuel lore. It's familiar and yet different than how you remember. The Sindrian Fuel Company is a unique Starsector faction, as rather than being a faction mod added to the sector, it replaces and enhances the established faction of the Sindrian Diktat. Alex and the core Starsector development team do plan on uniquifying the factions, namely through adding several signature ships to the factions with less identity, the Pegasus and Executor class battleship being the highlight for the Diktat. This is a great idea, and I eagerly look forward to the next major update to the base game. Currently, however, the entire Asconia system serves as a central antimatter fuel stop to the player, especially once your fleet grows to a considerable size. What else was there to do in Asconia? Buy Volturnian lobster, of course, but once you filled up on antimatter and bought your favorite gas station lobster, what else was there? To be completely honest, I never cared to find out. I knew there was a dictator who called himself the Lion of Sindria. Do they even have lions on Sindria? Do those even exist in the sector? I would like to know. And otherwise, I completely ignored the faction. No longer will the Sindrian Fuel Company be ignored. A quote from our glorious and auspicious leader. My loyal customers, my hard-working employees, my friends. These past 25 cycles have been a tumultuous time for us all. Yet despite this, we continue to move forward. Though there are those who continue to doubt us, the Sindrian Fuel Company has shown no sign of slowing down. The results are in, and thanks to me, Sindrian brand antimatter fuel continues to be the most popular brand in the Persian sector. I thank you all for your continued support, and may we continue to prove to all that Sindrian antimatter fuel is the best for this cycle and every cycle beyond. So remember, buy Sindrian or else. This mod takes the gas station meme and makes it real. The SFC is a passion, a movement, an experience. And now you can experience a star system you might be familiar with in a whole new way. Asconia. Centrally located in the core worlds, Asconia is a red giant that burns bright. Much like our glorious leader's passion for Sindrian brand antimatter fuel. Where does the best antimatter fuel in the sector come from? Sindria, of course. Sindria is a rocky metallic world that is the headquarters and main production planet of the Sindrian Fuel Company. If you want the best damn antimatter fuel in the sector, you get it from Sindria. Sindria is fueled by the hard work and honest labor of its citizens. Due to the intense radiation of Asconia, the population of Sindria is concentrated in a handful of hive cities that are built deep into the surface of the planet. And we all know what life is like in hive cities. Sindria is where you'll be able to find the primary contacts of the Sindrian Fuel Company. More on them later. The Sindrian Fuel Company may be known for its best-in-class antimatter fuel, but if you take a trip to Volturn, you can experience the Volturnian lobster. This special blue lobster will not only satisfy your hunger, but quench your thirst. If you take a trip to the exclusive Volturnian garden, you can have the chance of meeting Volturni, the Sindrian Fuel Company's mascot. Reserve your spot today, as the waitlist is only approximately 10 cycles. Can't make it to the lobster garden? Join the less fortunate crowd and instead visit the Blue Lobster, proudly the second most popular establishment on Volturn. Please consume Volturnian lobster responsibly and ignore any and all rumors of resistance movements, cults, and criminal syndicates operating on Volturn. Speaking of those less fortunate, Kruer is a wonderfully misfortunate rock of a colony. Being neither the headquarters of the SFC nor where Volturni calls home, Kruer is an excellent location for those who despise long lines and fair wages. You see, Kruer has a thriving internship program, which this man is in charge of. It's so successful that many of the young and hopeful applicants never leave Kruer. The mining labor camp internship program retention rate is one of the best in the sector. If you are looking for work, Kruer has job openings. Nortia is an independently controlled world that was once dedicated to seasonal robotic mining operations and substance abuse. That was before it was inundated with refugees during the Asconia crisis. The substance abuse is now no longer seasonal. If you thought the last two planets had poor living conditions, you'll be glad to know that Umbra, the local pirate world, is at least the best at something. Headquarters of the Asconian Refueling Consortium, these savages are actually trying to compete with the Sindrian Fuel Company. They export off-brand antimatter which is likely to combust in your fuel tanks, and actively resort to pirate activities in an attempt to disrupt Sindrian fuel shipments. This message has been paid for by the Sindrian Fuel Company. And speaking of things paid for by the Sindrian Fuel Company, I feel the need to briefly talk about the art. Greywind has commissioned many art pieces for the Sindrian Fuel Company. While the majority of this art is not directly in the mod, there's a lot to discover. It might be character building, faction development, ships, Sindrian fuel tankers, big fucking antimatter canisters, gigantic armor-plated capital class, and of course, a tanker full of memes. There's even some cross-mod art, which we'll touch on later. What kind of music would the Sindrian Fuel Company use to inspire its employees? Let's find out together, and give it a quick listen. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. You might think I'm joking. I am, and I'm not. Because while the music for the Sindrian Fuel Company might seem silly, it's also thematically a perfect fit. You have a dictator, a gas station manager who runs a dubious fuel production chain, a lobtastic resort world, and other industrial planets with questionable work ethics. Reminds me of a certain other game. I quite enjoy these tunes, and you certainly know who you are dealing with when you hear them. The branding is impeccable. There's even some hidden music tracks, which we'll listen to later in the video. The Sindrian Fuel Company Fleet Doctrine. Every single ship is a modified fuel tanker. There are no exceptions to this doctrine. There is a fuel tanker to fit every fleet role. Some ships are quite experimental, but they all carry, burn, and in some cases launch Sindrian brand antimatter fuel. What does this mean for a dedicated Sindrian Fuel Company fleet? It means you won't need to haul around a fuel tanker because you have a whole fleet of them. To make room for all the high quality fuel, Sindrian Fuel Company ships have limited cargo and crew capacity. This is only a minor logistics setback, but it does mean your fleet will have a different composition than you are used to. Here's a few ship highlights that'll give you a taste taste of what the Sindrian Fuel Company has to offer. We'll take an example from each ship class. While several SFC frigates are quite bare bones when it comes to features, the Talaria TA-50 is an exceptional frigate. The design was spearheaded by Gregory Manfred and utilizes Sindrian antimatter fuel in a very clever way. For any war boys looking to give their rig some extra juice, you can enable the premium overcharge system. Injecting an experimental blend of Sindrian fuel, this system boosts energy weapon and engine output. The strain on the reactor does generate extra flux, so you do need to be mindful of how hard you push the Talaria. The frigate also has a built-in antimatter blaster which is rechargeable thanks to Sindrian antimatter fuel. This lets the frigate continue to be a threat even in protracted engagements. The Talaria TA-50 Advanced Tanker Frigate is quite rare, so make sure you snag one if you see it in the market. Let's take a look at our highlight destroyer, the Dram DM-150. Dependable, tough, reliable, built to last. The Dram DM-150 is a working captain ship, able to take its fair share of hits and a few more after that. The Dram DM-150, built tough, made tough, constructed tough, and guaranteed to increase the size of your penis. It's a great ship. It might be a little light on firepower, but this thing can take as much punishment as some capital ships. For being a destroyer-class vessel, the Dram DM-150 earns its spot in the fleet. The Slent ST-50. It's a neat little frigate and does great in a support role. But that's not the vessel I'd like to highlight. I'd like to show you the Slent ST-25, the downscaled version of the ST-50, which fits comfortably in the main hangar of the Clepsydra, the Sindrian Fuel Company's salvage cruiser. On the surface, this might look like a simple support carrier, but thanks to the Slent ST-25, it's getting a highlight. You see, the Slent ST-25 is long, much like its larger frigate design, which is rather unusual for a bomber. Many bombers in Starsector are wide, but the ST-25 sports two long-range PD lasers and a torpedo mounted at the front. It's one of the most awkward but charming bomber designs I've ever seen, and since it's built in with the Clepsydra, I love this carrier. The Sindrian Fuel Company fleet doctrine generally leans toward direct combat vessels instead of carriers, which is why I'd like to highlight our final ship in this lineup, the Prometheus PM-15000. You might be familiar with the Prometheus fuel tanker and what it is capable of. The PM-15000, however, is not affiliated with the Ludic Radicals and is the brainchild of Yunris Queen. Developed as an answer to the Hegemony's Legion battle carrier, the PM-15000 is an up-armored civilian retrofit, and a very capable one at that. This is one of the most common Sindrian fuel capitals and a very enjoyable one to fly. The only downside being that since this vessel is an adaptation of the civilian Prometheus, its weapon mounts are in rather odd locations. Both of its large missile mounts are facing the starboard side of the vessel. That being said, clever captains may be able to use this to their advantage in the field. Since this is such a staple vessel of the SFC, I suggest you get acquainted with this capital and spend a weekend at Phillips. I almost never touch the main menu missions, but if you'd like to get a nice intro to the faction and learn a bit more about Yunris Queen, it's a great place to start. Given these highlighted vessels, how would I describe the SFC ship designs? SFC vessels are generally low-tech in construction, originating from their fuel tanker roots. But much like the faction as a whole, there's a twist. Sindrian Fuel Company fleets have access to unique energy weapons and a handful of exotic technologies, developed by certain eccentric individuals. So what are these Sindrian Fuel Company weapons? Well, they're less weapons and more antimatter delivery systems. Utilizing what the faction has plentiful access to, SFC weapons all harness antimatter. These can be the signature antimatter torpedoes, beams, and even antimatter throwers. Sindrian antimatter weapons specialize in dealing energy and high explosive damage in a variety of ways. The antimatter burst beam array, for example, is a long-range high explosive burst beam, able to quickly shred opponents who let their shields drop. Equipping an antimatter loadout on the BIA BA-150 made me realize how powerful these weapons could be. A fast attack antimatter destroyer can deliver a powerful punch to undefended carriers. The downside to antimatter weaponry, an absolute lack of kinetic damage for breaking shields. As a result, Sindrian Fuel Company ships can struggle against properly shielded opponents. To help them with shielded enemies, the SFC can make good use of its heavy fighters. The Sindrian Fuel Company only has a few options when it comes to unique fighter wings, but the options they do have are very capable. The Melilitro Heavy Fighter is a great assault ship that uses flare launchers and light autocannons to pressure enemy vessels. The Droplet Interceptor uses its boost to get through, and the Mid-M Bomber uses dual antimatter blasters to slap. Oh, and that other fighter that looks something like a Volturnian lobster, that's experimental. As for experimental designs, there's a few ships that I couldn't fit into the other sections, and I realized it'd be a crime not to include these in my review video. These are the ridiculous ships. One of the most exotic designs in the Fuel Company is the Hydria HA-150 Phase Destroyer. Designed by Yunris Queen, this ship has a lot of damage potential in a small package. Utilizing phase technology to warp in antimatter fuel canisters, the Hydria can apply its special antimatter delivery from surprising angles. My favorite example of this is watching one of my officers absolutely style on a Ludicpath ship, dropping fuel on the enemy ship, closing the distance, and then doing what I can only describe as an interdimensional teabagging. A few more fuel canisters as a parting gift, then whipping the Hydria around to send a Reaper torpedo right into the stern of the ship. Once again, this is 100% the AI. The Hydria HA-150, 10 out of 10, I love it. How about something with a little more girth? The Epimetheus EM-15000 siege ship. It's large, slow, and quite powerful, armed with a massive, built-in antimatter cannon. This ship delivers Sindrian brand war crimes from extreme ranges. While the ship was considered a vanity project by the Fuel Company's senior staff, the project was nevertheless completed, and produced a vessel that could take big hits and return even bigger. Its main cannon and extreme range are impressive, but that's not actually what makes this one of my favorite ships to fly. Its ship system, the fuel dump. You know what? Why don't I just show you? And finally, the Marathon Station Refueler. We all know what this looks like, a giant pink spaceship. The Marathon is actually one massive fuel tank with a skeleton built around it in which the crew operates. The Sindrian Fuel Company is, after all, known for its fuel and crew safety. The Marathon is by nature a utility vessel, and naturally, I equipped several antimatter throwers for interstellar combat. Due to the vast nature of the ship, a traditional shield system has been foregone for modular shield emitters on the sides. While the Marathon is described as a vulnerable target, it was upgraded with the plasma burn system in a recent update. Most captains would use such a system to avoid direct contact with the enemy. We, however, are not so limp-minded. We prefer to apply the Marathon directly to the target, penetrating deep into the enemy formation where we begin throbbing uncontrollably. Should penetration prove difficult, we repeatedly thrust into the target until resistance armor is broken. Extended thrusting may cause serious side effects, like losing a side shield module. Should plasma burn last longer than 4 hours, consult your mechanic immediately. The Marathon Station Refueler. It can go the distance, if you can. The best part about the Marathon, or any of the ridiculous ships in this section, they might be somewhat rare, but you can find the Hydria, Epimetheus, and Marathon for sale at any Sindrian fuel market. As for secret Sindrian fuel technology, you'll need a higher clearance level, and for that, you'll need to make some friends. There are many colorful characters within the Sindrian Fuel Company. In fact, some of these characters have more personality than the entire vanilla Dictat. For simplicity, we'll break these down into contacts and other characters. Your primary contacts within the SFC will be Yunris Queen, Gregory Manfred, and Balashi. You'll be reporting to these three quite often and helping them out with their various projects. Other characters you may meet include Merindin Dunn, Rudrik Roy, Lumi Froes, Velmarie Jenkins, Unifer Rooney, Ruka Yeni, Kaista Mongaera, and even Volturni. As for meeting the magnanimous, excellent, glorious, and auspicious Supreme Chief Overlord President Executive Gas Station Manager Philip Andrada, that might prove more difficult. Before we go any further, I'd like to make clear that these characters and interactions are actively being worked on and are constantly changing. Character art is being updated as well as the means of interacting with them. The complexity of such gets deeper with every update. These characters and interactions are a major part of the mod, so we'll be getting to know each one. From my previous videos, however, it was brought to my attention that some people don't want to be spoiled about such things, even if they are a work in progress. I do my best to preserve the player experience and not reveal anything too major when making these videos, but if you really want to know as little as possible, you may safely skip to the designated time of the video as shown on screen. So, you're in for the ride. Good, we'll take this planet by planet. Let's start with Yunris on Sindria. Yunris Queen is the head researcher of the Sindrian Fuel Research and Development Board. If you offer to help, you can become her dutiful assistant, which I assure you is much better than being one of her test subjects. Saying Yunris Queen is unhinged would be an understatement, but nobody can deny her intelligence or her contributions to the Sindrian Fuel Company. Yunris Queen loves to push boundaries with her research, and when she's not mumbling about being entitled to the sweat of her brow, she'll ask if you would kindly help her with underworld contact jobs. Gregory Manfred can also be found on Sindria and is the lead developer of the R&D board. Manfred has been responsible for many of the fuel fleet's retrofit designs, and converted otherwise dedicated fuel haulers into respectable fighting ships. Not quite as radical as Yunris, Gregory prefers grounded, reliable designs. Offering your help will let you contact Gregory as a high-importance trade contact. He's a good lad. Want to talk to Andrada? Haha, not today. It's Spender Balashi, junior manager of the Lion's Guard, Andrada's personal paramilitary. Balashi is a serious man, seriously passionate about the Sindrian Fuel Company, and won't take you seriously until you have a commission. All must serve the Supreme Chief Overlord President Executive Gas Station Manager, Philip Andrada, and the first step is reading some literature. Have a commission? You may begin your journey of serving the glorious and auspicious Supreme Chief Overlord President Executive Gas Station Manager. That's all we had room for by serving Balashi. He's kind of a big deal. You can engage in casual conversation with all the primary contacts of the Sindrian Fuel Company, and even ask them about various other characters. Dig deep enough and you might learn some interesting information. Let's take a break from Sindria and meet some Volturnian ladies. Lumi is the up-and-coming manager in the board of advertisement and marketing. What she lacks in depth, she makes up for in enthusiasm for Volturnian merchandise. Velmarie Jenkins is a senior manager on the board of environment and production, tasked with managing planetary surveys and potential fuel company expansion. Good luck with her, as she does not take kindly to flirtation, or anything for that matter. As for meeting with Volturni, get in line, we're still waiting. Let's take a trip to Cruor, where everyone is waiting for their opportunity to get off the rock. The two individuals who you can meet here are Rudrick Roy and Marinden Dunn. This pair has received several significant updates recently, and both have different opinions about Cruor. You see, Rudrick Roy used to be in charge of Sindria's security and defense forces, a very prestigious position. That was until the Lion's Guard managed to take over that role entirely. Roy was then transferred to Cruor, and while still technically assigned as the security manager position of the planet, he spends more time making sure the populace doesn't kill each other than actually worrying about outside threats, because really, nobody cares about Cruor. Except maybe one man, by the name of Marinden Dunn. Dunn holds the record for longest serving labor manager of Cruor, a position that every other individual has managed to transfer out of, yet somehow, Dunn has maintained quotas for several cycles, all while keeping a smile on his face. How does he do it? Bribes, and lots of them. Compliments are nice and everything, but the secret to winning people over is giving them what they want. Hey babe, what do you want for dinner?
I want tequila!
Where do the majority of these bribes come from? Other mods. That's right, we're multi-mod drifting. Cross-mod interaction, baby. Now, usually I wouldn't have an entire section dedicated to talking about cross-mod interaction. For the PAGSM mod, however, it's not just an added bonus, it's a feature. This does get tricky, because we are gathered here today to talk about the Sindrian Fuel Company, and not other mods. I don't even know how many mods have crossover material with PAGSM at this point. The list seems to get longer every day. For those of you wondering, the Dictat Enhancement mod by Jal28 is integrated with PAGSM, so if you want an expanded Dictat experience, you should absolutely install both. I did not install the Dictat Enhancement mod for this review, as I wanted to avoid confusion about what content was from either specified mod. So to keep things as simple as possible, I'll show you a few of the cool interactions I found based on the mods I do have installed, starting with the Substance Abuse mod from Sir Hartley. This mod adds an assortment of alcoholic beverages to the game, with each vanilla faction having their own special drink. These beverages can be consumed by your crew to give temporary buffs and debuffs in your campaign. In PAGSM, they can be given to contacts to boost relations. The great part about this is since the Sindrian Fuel Company is based on the Sindrian Dictat, the signature Asconia Sunshine beverage is very much integrated and can be given to most contacts. That's not where this ends, however. Different contacts will have different beverage preferences. Yunra's Queen, for example, does not enjoy Asconia Sunshine and only drinks the more refined Byzantine wine. Where to acquire Byzantine wine, you ask? From Byzantium. That's not from Substance Abuse. Oh no. That's from Interstellar Imperium by Dark Revenant. And how about chocolates, croissants, and other assorted bakery goods? If you have UAF installed, which you should by now, and smuggle these treats off New Aurora, you'll find many willing consumers in the Sindrian Fuel Company. Be careful mentioning Favonius though, as these two factions do have competing resort worlds. Volturn for the Sindrian Fuel Company and Favonius for the UAF. Despite this rivalry between factions, some individuals still take their vacation days on Favonius. The absolute mad lad, look at him go! These gifts make it significantly easier to increase relations with any given contact, but be aware that not all gifts are liked by all characters. You might upset someone who takes your gift as an insult, but for the most part, people like gifts, and Bawashi really likes donuts. This is especially true for non-contact characters, as without gifts, it's a whole lot of compliments to boost relations. Greywind is actively working on his own special, limited quantity gift resource, which should help with boosting relations without bloating the inventory. Things get nutty when you have too many mods installed. We know that, don't we?
To fight the abyss, one must know it.
Ruka Yeni is the Radiant Officer of the Grand Fuel Fleet, the largest fleet of the Sindrian Fuel Company. She is strong and quite adorable when she calls you a little moth. If you manage to defeat her fleet in battle and have the Take No Prisoners mod installed, you can, like taking things that aren't yours? Every single vanilla planet has a unique Sindrian Fuel planetary description when conquered as part of a Nexarellan campaign. But why stop there? Enjoy any mods from this list. Some of their planets have unique descriptions as well, and you know what that means. Have Secrets of the Frontier from Inventor Raccoon? Find an unusual AI hiding in the stone river around Asconia. Tell someone on Sindria about it. Try to hack the mysterious AI with your own alpha core. Realize that this was a bad idea from the very beginning. Realize that you now have to tell your contact on Sindria what happened. Or don't. That's entirely up to you. Take it further. Bring home your AI girlfriend. Or, if you fancy yourself a degenerate, your AI foo. Introduce her to your friends. Remember, your friends are idiots. Introduce her to Gregory. Think deeply about what he tells you. Decide to impress Queen with your new girlfriend. Realize that you should have listened to Manfred. Remember, you are playing on Iron Mode. Forever be ashamed of your words and deeds. If you manage to make some friends and prove yourself worthy in the Sindrian Fuel Company, there are rewards. Quite substantial ones. These granted privileges all depend on who you decide to impress within the company. For simplicity, we'll go through each, starting with the smallest. Work your relations up with Vel Murray Jenkins, and on behalf of the Board of Environment and Production, she'll happily accept planetary survey data. Turning in survey data to Jenkins will grant an increased bounty reward, so it's certainly worthwhile to bring your data to Vel Murray if you've been stockpiling it. Marindin Dunn always needs to meet ore production quotas on Kroor. If these ores come from off-planet, he doesn't mind, as it still makes his life easier. So, building up relations with Dunn will let you in on this little scheme of his. This allows you to deliver access bulk and transplutonic ore to Dun for a significantly increased price. Some might say Merindon dabbles in corruption, but all I see is a man who gets things done. As much as Roderick Roy would love his old job back, he can still flex some of his power on Kror. With good enough relations, Roy will grant you access to some surplus military equipment. Mechanically, this is quite interesting. Buying surplus military equipment will convert a number of your crew into Marines. This is especially handy if you want to quickly prepare for a planetary invasion. More equipment? Looking to go to war? There's a number of combat tanks, mechs, and other heavy armaments collecting dust on Kror. With the right amount of Asconia sunshine, Roy could potentially have some of these decommissioned. Now, to avoid suspicion, Roy can only decommission so much military equipment at one time. Grease them palms, however, an entrepreneurial captain may gain direct access to the Board of Security and Armaments resale market. These decommissioned assets do go for a premium markup, but if you're looking to go to war, you'll find what you need. But Roy isn't all arms dealer this, I hate my job that. Sometimes he just likes a good banquet and hosts them on a semi-regular basis. Now, usually these banquets are only for the Board of Security and Armament, or BSA, but if you are lucky, you might just get an invitation. Now, what I was surprised by is this special event has writing quality and composure that rivals that of the vanilla Starsector campaign. And if you are familiar with the Starsector campaign, you'll know that nothing special ever happens at posh events like balls or banquets. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? How about the main contacts of the Sindrian Fuel Company? As you increase your standing with each, you might try asking them what they're working on. Being part of the research and development board, they might let you test some special Sindrian Fuel hull mods. Each of these mods is quite experimental and can drastically change how your ships behave, such as the turret accelerators from Manfred and the antimatter engine from Queen. If you happen to be Balashi, you might be so passionate about the Sindrian Fuel Company that you found a way to cram even more Sindrian brand antimatter fuel into a ship, regardless of safety concerns. Truly, we live in remarkable times. Here's where things get interesting. When your relationship is well established, you may get a special interaction from any of the primary fuel contacts. Gregory, for example, is a good lad who enjoys his beverages. As such, he'll invite you planetside for drinks, and to show you a special project he's been working on. All of these special interactions have choices with various consequences. In addition to being well written, there is unique music as well. For being classified as a meme, the character interactions in this mod are amazing. So, the juicy bits. After a nice talk and a few drinks, Manfred will ask you to test out his latest development, the Nephropoidia Fighter Wing. The gift comes with one LPC ready to install and use in your fleet, as well as the blueprints for continued production. That experimental lobster fighter we touched on before, this is that fighter. The Nephropoidia fighter has a steep production and mounting cost, but its effectiveness speaks for itself. An elite fighter capable of controlling space, hunting down enemy fighters, deploying advanced flares, and disabling enemy vessels with EMP, you'll find yourself producing more as soon as you can. How about our good buddy Balashi? As you might remember, Balashi doesn't have the highest clearance level. What he does have is something arguably more valuable, an authentic copy of the Philip Andrade experience. Treat Balashi with the respect he deserves, and he'll let you borrow his beloved copy. Some may think the Philip Andrade experience is merely a marketing tool for the Sindrian Fuel Company. What they don't realize is that you can experience wisdom straight from holographic Andrade himself, and our glorious leader is never wrong. Yunris Queen. Hard to please and rather difficult to work for. Building a relationship with Yunris is no easy task. Given that Yunris is an underworld contact, you'll have to balance winning her approval and your relations with the sector factions. Now, if you have been a dutiful and helpful assistant to Queen, you might get the chance to ask her what ships she's been working on. The Iapetus IS-15,000, a formidable Sindrian Fuel battleship, Queen informs you, is but a downsizing of her true ambition. If you'd like to know more, settle in for the ride. As your shuttle lands, you'll be greeted by a familiar sounding voice, but not quite who you expected. Meet Unifer Rooney. While she is tasked with escorting you to see Miss Queen, Rooney will hesitantly ask if she can escort you inside. Queen did ask you to come alone, but the choice is yours. As for the main reason Queen brought you planetside, is to show you her life's work, the Iapetus IS-20,000 Dreadnought. The reward for how helpful you've been to Queen, the Iapetus is yours to command.
Ooh la la.
Queen wasn't exaggerating when she said this ship could change the fate of the Persian sector. Unlike the 15K, the Iapetus 20K is capable of facing all large mounts to the bow of the ship, in addition to standard broadside configuration. And, as opposed to the maneuvering jets of the 15K, the 20K sacrifices speed for insane amounts of Daka. The weapon overclock ship system boosts fire rate as well as projectile speed, giving the Iapetus 20K bursts of firepower that make even Queen smile. The Iapetus 20K is an incredibly fun dreadnought to fly, but I got the feeling this ship wasn't meant for me. After receiving a strange call, it turns out that Unifer is oddly curious about how the Iapetus is doing. She seems attached to the ship. Confronting Queen about the issue, her response is unusual, to say the least. After getting Rooney's contact information, naturally, I had to know more. As it turns out, Unifer was supposed to captain the Iapetus IS-20000, but for unexplained reasons, she has not been allowed to pursue her dream of captaining her rightful ship, and instead works as one of Unis's assistants in the lab. It was at this time I felt a fire inside me. I had a new goal. I would see to it that Unifer Rooney captained the Iapetus IS-20000, whatever the cost. I talked to her, tried to boost her confidence, give her the lobber, but it was not enough. She still had yet to smile. No matter my effort, her dour demeanor persisted. I needed to better my efforts, find a solution, but there was only one place I knew that had the large caliber ballistic weaponry needed for such a task. They hated me and the company, but I needed them. I needed
Choco Lava.
It was the greatest Choco Lava heist the sector had ever seen, all for a blue-haired, green-eyed woman on Sindria, and for the first time, I saw hope. Hope for a happy, smiling Unifer. It would take time, but I am a man of conviction. I scoured the sector, spending days, months even, searching for what could make Unifer smile. To my surprise, after all the glittering gold, trinkets, and baubles, paid for in blood, Unifer curiously enjoyed the same Byzantine wine that Unerus Queen did. A few more bottles of wine and I could tell Unifer was opening up. Her confidence was building, and so I asked if she would like to join the fleet. Her skills were exceptional, to say the least, but that's not what was important. I just wanted to see her smiling and aboard her ship. Despite my best efforts, she refused and cut the comlink. And this, my friends, is where the ride ends and the real choices begin. If you really want help in recruiting Unifer, you may ask Queen to assist in her recruitment. What you may have noticed is that Queen behaves strangely when it comes to Unifer Rooney. She might say some things that are downright confusing and make your blood boil. You might think you are doing what's best for Unifer. When talking to Queen, pick your words very fucking carefully. I can't stress this enough. I've seen a lot of spooky things in Starsector over the years, but she terrifies me. If this music starts playing,
May Lud have mercy.
choose wisely, and with a pure heart, Unifer Rooney might just be saved. Her smile and optimism
Restored.
I wish you luck, for these choices are yours to make. As for me, Unifer will command the ship of her dreams, and if I have to, I will sat-bomb the entire sector to protect that smile. Since this is one of my Starsector mod definitely not documentaries, we do need to touch on some critiques. For PAGSM, I have two. There's quite the list of names in the credits section of the mod, and when asked about it, Greywin spoke to me how the PAGSM experience is very much a community project. While he is the lead developer of the mod, Greywin freely admits that he could not do it alone. Really? I think this is great, and it's awesome to see how many people Greywin has rallied to work on the project together. With any large group project, however, there is the issue of consistency. In the earlier versions of the mod, there were a few ships and weapons that were quite literally rough around the edges, and luckily those have been polished up in the recent updates. The Sindrian Fuel fleet now has a cohesive feel despite having many different ship designers. The most obvious area of inconsistency, as you probably noticed while watching, is in the character art. Now I want to make something very clear. I'm not here to be an art critic. Lol, imagine being an art critic, raffle even. I'm merely addressing the issue of consistency. I appreciate that every character does in fact fact have a unique portrait, especially since there are so many interesting and likable characters in the mod. It is quite obvious, however, that there are multiple artists involved from the obvious differences in style. I personally don't mind deviations from the vanilla Starsector art style, and every portrait in PAGSM has its own charm, so while playing the mod I recommend using each portrait as a mental guide and to focus on the writing and music for the best experience. I have to bring it up since it is noticeable while playing, but ultimately, I don't believe it to be a deal breaker. Bugs. Every mod has them, some more so than others. PAGSM, being a mod in its infancy, is very susceptible to them. The good news is Greywind is quick to respond and fix reported bugs. One of his goals for PAGSM is to really push character interaction to its limit, so understandably, there were some interesting bugs I found while playing. When chatting with Unifer Rooney, I found I could endlessly compliment her. This was great, up until I realized that reconsidering my options wasn't an option. Another time while doing my usual business in Asconia, this spicy lad felt like pulling me over. Now at first it seemed like he just misplaced his sunglasses, until he felt like busting up all the ships in my fleet. He then proceeded to do this about 10 more times. At that point, thanks to a rather large purchase I made, my fleet was too big to retreat. The only options I was given were to engage or use a story point to avoid confrontation. After using countless story points, burning through thousands of supplies, and having my blood pressure raised significantly, I realized there was only one true solution. I lured his fleet out into the Asconia wilderness, RuneScape style, and like animals. I also found out that Balashi is an alcoholic. This, I don't consider a bug. This is canon. The rest of the mod is quite bug-free, and all these bugs I have shown you are fixed in the current version. I made sure of that. PAGSM is developing at an alarming rate, with several major updates, all of them save incompatible, since I began this video. Look at the fucking pace! And speaking of cool new stuff, you can expect to see unique faction items, cross-mod faction relation text, and heaps more character interaction coming to the mod soon. One of Greywind's goals is to have every unique Sindrian Fuel NPC have some level of interactability, with potential for more special events with multiple characters involved. We might see some occasional additions to the fleet and arsenal of the SFC, but the main driving factor being enhanced character interaction. Because if you didn't think there were enough already, there will be more Sindrian Fuel Company NPCs. I don't know how many. Greywind just told me there will be more, and I've learned to stop questioning crazy people. To tie into the vanilla diktat, there's also plans for a company museum which goes over the true and accurate history of the Sindrian Fuel Company and its founder, Supreme Executive Philip Andrada. The Lion's Guard will also be receiving attention down the line, with their lore integrated as well for the ultimate diktat experience. Personally, I'm looking forward to learning more about the three blue-haired, green-eyed women of Asconia. Whether they are sisters or are related through less traditional means is yet to be seen. There's something more there. I just know it. So, given all this, what do we think? The PAGSM mod is a surprise, because like many, I thought the mod was a meme, a silly mod that was good for a few laughs and little more. On that point, I did actually burst out laughing several times while playing. What I didn't expect was to have one of the richest Starsector experiences I've had in years. There are great ships, weapons, fighters, all the things we've come to expect in faction and expansion mods over the years, but to transform one of the most boring vanilla factions into one with such incredible depth and lovable characters is something I've never seen before. And to break that point down even further, what really sells PAGSM as one of the best mod experiences Starsector has to offer is the writing. Real talk, I don't read much, especially books. My smooth brain would rather be out exploring space or engaging in fleet warfare. PAGSM changed my brain. There's so much great writing, it made me want to explore everything the Sindrian Fuel Company had to offer. I mean, even the one-time consumable blueprint package comes with a raffle ticket for a free, all-expenses-paid trip to Volturn. Nice! The Philip Andrada gas station manager mod is an amazing experience, having some of the best characters and writing I've ever seen in a mod. I eagerly look forward to future updates and absolutely recommend the mod to everyone. It's a great time. Go download PAGSM on the Starsector forum and make the magnanimous, excellent, glorious, and auspicious Supreme Chief Overlord President Executive Gas Station Manager Philip Andrada proud. I remember when I told myself I'd limit the PAGSM review to 30 minutes max. That was before I knew what I was getting myself into.
And here we are.
Thanks for being an awesome community while I put together these monster reviews, and your comments are much appreciated. If you'd like to see more of the Sindrian Fuel art used in the video, links to the artist channels are posted in the description. Now I assume you all know how to push buttons on the screen, so if I can make this rise into a 360, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, and have a great day. I'm IroncladLion, and thanks for watching.